Greetings. I broke the file because I'm having problems with my editing style. This is the rest of the first message. So I was saying God is good. It's been a long time. Definitely since the start of the pandemic. Since I've seen anything even remotely move in a direction back to being in order after everything went over the abyss, way past the brink of no return. Let's see. I think I wanted to get straight to some news. So it's today's just sort of a newscasting talk reprisal after my last mega message of minimum words. I don't have anything really very new to say in terms of leadership and giving orders yet. Things have been going very well as I've seen the playbooks like the Cold War playbook and the World Wars playbooks just starting to play out. Language has been dying rapidly, voraciously, as I am consuming it, such as in media posts and articles and stories through the internet like Google News. I've actually been finding nearly a majority of what I read from official sources is in nearly broken language, with it being in a failure state beyond something you could even blame on a proofreader, and such that the errors are so tremendous. It's like nothing in history, where you probably don't even have the right to write retractions or apologies. It's gone so wrong, you actually have to admit maybe it was a failed translation or something. And then with these stories, like they might be trying to translate Russian and Ukrainian, having it go by way of the UK through Old English and British English to maybe make its way into the American media stream as American English, with its allowances for all English, winding up being very rough, broken language of multiple languages and bad translations. So finally we have this talk about the horrendous acts of those who have made their way into the Azovstal mill, the steel mill in Mariupol that has been invaded and raided by people who were not supposed to, because it's sort of turned into a Hollywood fiction story where people think they can throw the law to the wind to survive or win or something and have no repercussions. And this latest article I read, with it having been released from inside the metallurgical steelworks, actually sort of talks about the individuals in there, as I sometimes roughly do, not wanting to call them humans, with a funny translation. I think I'm wondering what the original status of is, saying that the people in there are running low on life force. It sounds like whatever means it is they use to get the message out sort of thinks of them like video game characters with power bars, like Mortal Kombat. Okay, let's see. On to some madness. There are some statements out there that the world economy is about dead, about done for, and I'm seeing this latest screwball of a way of doing business from the top organizations that always seem to do it when it rolls downhill to the smaller people, having made some rough figures to be released on the actual value there is in the world's economy, the way it happens when they try to just screw anyone who has to work with them that they're going to cover for losses for, such that they've tanked and toppled the world's economy if these figures get to hold out. And it's something like the World Bank says it's going to cost, I'm trying to remember these figures, I think it was something like the World Bank is claiming 3 billion, or was it 30 billion losses or to rebuild Ukraine, while Ukraine is claiming 600 billion. While there are reports of 20,000 high-rises destroyed in Kharkiv, I understand what wealth is and what money is, and how currency relates to these, and inflation works, as well as what an economy is and means, where it is supposed to be a controlled ecosystem of value. By the time, just to throw these figures around, $600 billion worth of losses is called 3 billion or 30 billion. That's about big enough to just cripple to the death the whole economy. I guess it's a good communist work. The economy is fake in all ways. As there's all these reports about food shortages, with the real issue actually being the cost of food having been artificially raised and gouging constantly, with there being this constant increase in prices, with a system of anything that can be blamed to raise prices being blamed and having prices of food raised. So I hope soon enough, maybe after this message, I can hold off as long as from the last message. Things can be back in order. Like wealth can actually mean wealth and not a misrepresentation of the term by an improper translation from the word currency, probably by way of money. With currency having always been a sad joke of us always sort of wanting to label it bills, like your bills you have to pay, or debt notes and such that there's always the point of physical currency being a losing equation and never representing wealth properly, and in no way really having the right to be communicated as the idea that the word money encapsulates. Let's see. Maybe I have a few more points here. I've been working on my Ukrainian. They had those people that made it to the mills looking like they've been done up by the mills, to that mill. I was starting to study and memorize what Ukrainian genetic features are as displayed, like the basic art of being able to read a face by its sections and such. And now that those people are in that mill, they don't look Ukrainian at all. They look like the not too ugly for TV people from the fiction and the news and such. And then I was listening to them speak their Ukrainian with direct subtitled translation, such that I was able to go ahead and translate the English translations to the Ukrainian with Google Translate to have it spoken to me to check. I don't think anyone who has spoken what was called, or what has been called, Ukrainian through the media actually speaks Ukrainian. Let me try some Ukrainian. This might be a good statement. I guess this is near in order. It's not a full order, but this might be like one of the few things that needs to be said to them if it could ever work its way through the media spiral of death and get back out. All right. Привет. Policja Prekaitacja Rozjeju. Maybe I'll just leave that up to you to translate. I'm trying to avoid my Nazi Yahtzees, and it's sort of on the edge. I hope those I've addressed can understand it. I think I didn't get a perfect recitation, but it should be understandable. We're about at the stage from the World War II playbook where the West has decided they're going to steal everything from the other side. And they've made it perfectly clear now that there is a call. I'm forgetting all the terms like who, although I know directly to the U.S. to take the Ukrainian losses out of Russia. And they're actually saying that the U.S. and the West, as their collective entities, need to make Russia pay to rebuild the Ukraine and to pay off the families who've had lost and dead loved ones and such. It almost sounds like a straight canned phrase from World War II, although I'm not really that up on that. So, I mean, things have moved along very quickly. There's news. A Russian general says Moldova is going to be taken by Russia in this thing. Everything looks like Russia's actually going to have to go ahead and conquer the whole planet because it's so far out of line with our codes, such as our justice codes, that to actually win this war with the Ukraine, it can't only be a win in the Ukraine and a taking of the Ukraine, when it also has to be the enforcement of the code, which it calls for the whole world domination. So the whole world is out of line, mostly the West, with it looking like China and their types are going to have to give up and submit, as they seem to be in line to do. I think they're talking about 40,000 Ukrainian refugees, right? I gotta be careful about these Nazi Yahtzees. We have all these Ukrainian refugees here who are actually supposed to just go straight to jail, and they've passed some sort of bill to allow them not to. Something like treating them like Afghanis. It looks like they're actually just creating all these classes. Basically, the way this code works, something like there's an Afghanistan bill for some sort of refugee release so they can get here and not have to go to jail for being illegal immigrants, while we have all these illegal immigrant Ukrainians here and in the news who are supposed to be persecuted, and they've classed them under the Afghanis. Like these Afghanistan people are now a higher class than them in terms of how they have the right to be here, with it being some sort of class under that act that the Ukrainians don't have to be persecuted for their illegal entry here. There was talk of chemical plant attack, although they didn't use those terms, in Russia. I'm talking about this thing going full World War again now, with all this unneeded warfare in Russia and on Russia. The Ukrainians have absolutely no purpose in attacking Russia except criminal intent and purposes. They need to be defending their homeland, and it's sort of like a game of Risk. I forget the terms. We're in the game of Risk. Once you're sort of down to your last ditch efforts, you're never supposed to move your pieces out to try to take new territory when you can't even hold the last territory you have. I think I'm remembering this from the old board game, where to try to control this, for the weaker minds, and it's just a game. The rules might not be understood. You're supposed to exchange what is representing their forces on the board, like horses, for a piece that's a single piece instead of multiple pieces to control the movement of the forces. Back to my talk about how God is good. My higher power is in contact with me and shows me the path for his plan for me and us. The lyrics in our music are changing. The lyrics to our music are changing. So they've been moving around for a long time. I listen to the old classic rock mostly. Stuff I've worked on, stuff they say is stolen from Russia or from the Russian people. Quick side note, I think a lot of the people in this situation now are uneducated, highly, and they're not even really aware that the USSR is basically what was Russia before it became Russia. And it's coming up in many ways. Like they might not feel like they're using Russian weapons against Russian forces because they're USSR weapons, but they should know that's about what it is. There's many other terms, like other terms about the biggest amount of territory ever controlled, like by communism or Russia or the USSR on the maps. I had something worked up about Russia taking back its bases. I hadn't talked about this too much because I didn't know the map, but now I was hearing there's old Russian bases, or are they old Soviet bases or USSR bases or something, in places not currently Russia. Seems like it's time to go get those and turn that back to what it needs to be. I see this battle for the East, Ukraine, is starting to turn into the control to the major river, with it one in the Donbass region, and I see the taking of the two seas is going well. Oh, it's really sad being that I'm a police, having to see all the police losses, and it just drives me mad about the way something's gone so wrong. Our best and brightest, bravest boys in blue, boys in the red, fire hats and such, keep running into the death zone unneededly. Oh. I've been getting some intelligence back that the militaries have been trying to count that are missing. I hadn't fully put together where they've gone in this atrocity against all life taking place on this planet in our reality by what has become of the humans in this pandemic. Showing intelligence of all of our mills and heavy industry plants and that type of thing being controlled by our missing military, with finally this first piece out saying that it was Ukrainian National Guard who were the key to the invasion and raiding of the Mariupol steel mill that is infested by this illegal species now. Oh boy, I'm so close to that Nazi Yahtzee I'm always trying to avoid. Here's some proof of like how our factories and mills are totally destroyed. This is my pack. It's the only 100-liter pack on the market. It's the only pack in a camo pattern near mine. Every time I get one, they're almost just wastedly destroyed. I mean, they're almost totally unusable. Like, I've had to tie up some rope, put a belt on this, because my straps and such that are supposed to be the belts and what I'm replacing with the rope are just taunting me, having been improperly placed on the pack. And it's like this from the factory every time. It's clearly done at the mills. this is a new design, and there's this problem with this infestation of what used to be the humans doing this everywhere, always now. But here's some money, rope money or logic money as expressed in rope. I've tied. I've cut the rope. I've tied with an extra length, so I have a nice little bundle here with a quick pull-out system that's hanging off the end of the design. Because I've always wanted some extra length, but I've set this up so it's really nice. Like you can just clip it off and have a ready length of rope to use. I've heard that's a really nice design. I was wishing I had been able to leave some extra length at the start of my work. Like maybe I should put one of those at the end and the beginning of my rope designs. As I tied this one a little too tight, with the logic of my knots being that I need to feed a length at the start of the patterns I tied into the knot logic loop to fix the over tightening I've done, while it's mostly good still. Well, I'm trying to almost just not talk about what's going on here in the ruins of what used to be the USA. I've had to have an encounter with the Nazi Yahtzees or whatever. Ooga boogas, boogities. I tried to get my real ID. I've got a version of a real ID. It's gone terribly wrong, as it's had to go. And I was under orders from God Boss, King Stalin, to never get these because I'll be rushed immediately. And surefire, on the walk from the place I got it, I was assaulted by a large squad of these things, just jacking around with me. Somewhat calm enough with my training, although they all need to be removed from existence. At least the idea does. I need to not go on too far, but I changed up my style, and I basically told them without saying it, because they're not native language speakers here, and all they are is a form of automation that's triggered by triggering statements. So I basically tried not to threaten them with my command over them, and just said the country's dead and they're fakes without having to say it. And that I just didn't give a damn like they're the rest of the gang nagglers who fuck around with us like this. The curse. I don't care if this one goes to the kids. But, and it might be because I've managed to get through that, trying to be the bigger, higher life form. It's been in the news lately, as I've never really seen, as I'm trying to get word across that God is good. Our collective God, even though communism isn't really that allowing of religions, with the way the news has changed, seemingly impossibly, from the standard of the New World Order, the Western way of life, and what it's always been here, such that the stories are completely different. It's still wrecked up, like they're just using the old terms and cutting them together, but the information that's being brought across is that of the sort of faith needed to keep faith in the higher power that is our collective higher power, showing us his path for us to free us from the ills of the problems that are out of our control. And sad as it is, as I try to figure it out, we now have in the news police being killed by police. I'm trying to figure out how the funeral is supposed to work, but it was here locally. We had a police from a police force, not the same one that killed that police officer, in some sort of policing action by a seemingly bigger, higher-powered police force here. I guess I'm going to finish off here asking our higher power to grant us the wisdom to know the difference between suffering we can stop and the suffering we cannot, so that we can make our choices more wisely in serenity to end suffering within our capability of ending suffering.